not Chrome.
We're recording now, so I'm glad you didn't say anything else.
Alright.
Yeah, I'm going to turn off my VMs, just while you mention it.
I've had to turn off the turtle tank because I'm sat right next to it, so currently Stoford's a little bit annoyed.
Oh, how's Stoford? Let me see him.
You can't see him because it's really dark, I guess.
Oh, it
He's
is very
chilling,
good.
he's chilling there.
Where's his nunchucks?
I haven't got him trained up yet, he's still only a nipper.
Just give him some of that ooze. He'll grow up in no time.
Right, I'm glad this is being recorded. Great useful stuff so far.
Turtles.
Wow. That is a lot of the content for other episodes. Ben, go ahead. Go.
Sorry. What number is this? 42?
42, yeah.
Aye.
Hey, welcome to episode 42 of the PHP Town Hall podcast. You had myself, Ben Edmonds, and Phil Sturgeon tonight, as always. And we're joined by Paul Dracunas, which I'm sure I butchered, and Vance Lucas. Let's start out with Paul. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how do we pronounce your last name?
It's Dragunis, so with a G. It's like dragon with two O's, right?
Perfect.
So,
Okay.
you got it.
So tell us a little bit about yourself for people that don't know you. What are you involved in? What are you interested in?
Involved in kind of, it's kind of changed a little bit over the past maybe 10 years, but primarily PHP stuff and going from like PHP internal stuff to extensions to the PHP website and then PPI framework, which has kind of coexisted with my kind of consulting or professional PHP career, and then the idea of PPI framework was like interoperability stuff before that was like a term, and then the PHP Fig group kind of came together, so that's where I put out some of my time, and then these days I spend my time just doing PHP Fig stuff, growing PPI framework further, and as a day job I do consulting for government companies rolling out PSRs and Zen framework and doctrine and stuff like that, so keeps me busy.
Cool. Okay. Vance, the same for you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let me unmute first. I work full-time at NetSuite right now. I'm a developer on their e-commerce platform, building a CMS into their e-commerce system for their customers. Previous to that, I ran a web development studio called Brightbit for 4 years with two other guys, and we had 4 employees as well. If you're in the PHP community, you might know me from some conferences I've spoken at, or maybe from some open source stuff I published. PHP.env is probably the biggest, most popular project. Spot to ORM is another one I published that's gaining in popularity and is used in OpenCFP currently, and as well as some other projects.
Oh yeah, I actually looked at Spot. It's pretty nice all around.
Yeah, it's based off the doctrine D-ball, but it's just a nicer, in my opinion, it's a simpler, simpler doctrine basically. Yeah, so I guess that's. I'm also involved in a lot of community stuff in Oklahoma City. Started a Oklahoma City JavaScript user group, and over 2 years ago, leading a PHP user group as well. Co-founded those, so with some other people as well. Got a conference called Thunder Plains that we have here in Oklahoma City every year. It's mainly JavaScript and related technologies, Node, mobile, web stuff, that kind of thing. So.
Sweet. I've actually used the .m package a couple of times. It was real nice for me to find a good way of doing that stuff. In Laravel, the .m stuff used to be a little bit broken. I think they, in version 5, rolled your package in, right? And
yeah.
Now it works perfect. It's cool to come across like people that use other languages and then like pick up the tools from these languages and bring them back to PHP, right? Because
Yeah,
quite a few things like that, like .env is very popular in Ruby and Python
Ruby.
and stuff like
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I ran Brightbit for 4 years, most of our projects were in Ruby. Most of our projects were Rails. So I have a significant amount of Rails experience as well. And we used .env for everything. And then I would come back to doing PHP projects, because any PHP projects we did at Brightbit, I was like the lead PHP guy there. So I still got to do a lot of PHP at Brightbit, but I would always come back to PHP projects, and I'd be like, man, this is like not a solved problem, and for PHP, so I basically just copied or uh, translated rubies.env by beekeepers uh, for PHP, and it's kind of ironic that my most popular package is one that I just like copied from another language.
I was going to say
Plagiarizing.
translated was a nice way of saying like blindly ripped off, yeah. But
It was inspired by.
absolutely. Well, yeah, a lot of the stuff that I enjoy or use a lot is come from other places. So
Yeah.
with Fractal, that's pretty much me ripping off Active Model Serializer for Ruby
Yeah.
and a bunch of other stuff. So
Yeah, I actually made a library called Hyperspan that I used to create hypermedia presentations. But Fractal looks awesome too. Uh,
yeah,
I just never did anything with Hyperspan really.
that's fair. It's a really big world to get into. Like when you try and
Yeah.
like representing data is obviously a pretty fucking vague objective for a project, and so things like Fractal are like we help convert your data into like other data, and it is different,
Right.
and it gets really obscure when you start trying to support things like JSON API and how, and like other people all have their own idea of how they want to represent their data. So you have like custom nested includes and all this shit. And yeah, that's why I'm happily dumping it off on someone else now. So someone's going to take it.
Right. And there's multiple ways you can go with it too. I think you can. I think we picked opposite directions actually, Phil. I was looking at your stuff. It looks like Fractal. You basically determine how you want to format your data, like what you want your output to be, and how you want to format your data. In my library, I added methods where you could add. You basically build an object, a response with generic methods like add properties, add item, and then you can format it with siren or how or whatever representers you have. So it's like the same problem at two different angles. Me, I was like generic input and then multiple output formats, and you were like format it the way that you want it to look, you know? So it's
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not entirely happy with it. Version 1, Fractal needs to be recoded, and I found one or two people that might take over, and we'll try and change the way it all works. But yeah, it's an interesting problem that hasn't really been solved properly by other people. There's things like JMS Serializer, I think, which I didn't know about, which is apparently incredibly complex. So a lot of people were not too excited about using JMS Serializer. But yeah, I'm gonna hope they keep at it anyway, because people need to represent their data instead of just like farting it out into the screen and being like, here's just all the shit I pulled out of my database,
Right.
and throw it on the
Right.
screen right there. So
Yep, I know what you mean.
what else are we talking about today? I don't know much about Thunderplanes. What is Thunderplanes?
Yeah, so it's thunderplanesconf.com, just thunderplanesconf.com. We actually have our CFP open right now if you want to submit. The topics, it's basically out of the JavaScript community here that we've grown. So it's going to be JavaScript talks and anything that touches JavaScript. We even had a database talk, I think, our first year, a Postgres database talk. I mean, we have mobile talks, we have some soft talks, we have, of course, kind of hardcore JavaScript talks. We have talks on specific libraries like Angular, Ember. Probably have a talk on React this year since it's the hot the hot shit this year. Um, uh, this week maybe, right, with JavaScript.
Until something else comes out, yeah.
Until somebody writes a new one next week.
Right.
I do love how much people make fun of PHP for having a bazillion different frameworks, but then you look at JavaScript and it's got even more. They make last about a week is the average lifespan, I think.
Right. Well, in my mind, JavaScript and PHP have a lot of similarities. They're both kind of evolved languages, not designed ones from the beginning. They both started with a really small subset of stuff, and then just kind of kept piling other stuff on top of it. And so I think they have similar ways that they came about, similar processes that happened in both languages. That's another probably conversation though. But so Thunder Plains, it's currently a one-day conference. This year we might expand it to 2 days if we have enough submissions. We're trying to kind of gauge. It's kind of set as a 1 day right now. Maybe 2 day, depending on what we want to do. But so check it out if you're interested in JavaScript or any mobile, any related stuff.
Well put.
Yeah.
Such a big, all-encompassing thing.
I'd also say there's a lot of people that do PHP and they think, oh, maybe this doesn't fit right, but you definitely end up touching JavaScript, so it's good for all to kind of branch out a bit,
Yeah, well, and a lot of PHP developers will make a PHP API, and then they'll use Angular, Ember, or something on the front end. So, or they'll write a mobile app in App Accelerator, Titanium, or React, or something. PhoneGap.
Oh, did you have something to throw in there?
I was kind of trolling a little bit. I was going to say PHP and JavaScript both have closures, so it's the same thing, right?
Pretty much, they're both turning into Java or something.
I spend a lot of my day job trying to stop people from putting, because I do quality assurance. I have to do code quality, and people are trying to put, they have return, and then they have a closure, and then inside that they have another closure. I'm just like, what the fuck is this?
So, Paul, you get involved with the PHP.net website, right? How did you get suckered into that one?
I just get more involved in the PHP team, the language level, and looking around, and I seen where I was doing internal stuff, and then a bit of documentation and a bit of website stuff here and there, and I looked around, and there was a lot of people there who are C programmers and system developers like myself, but doing the core stuff, the language, but there was not a lot of people that were any good at web stuff. So I kind of said, I just kind of raised my hand and said, I'll take care of web stuff, and because that was something that I was pretty good at already. So I just started doing that, and over time I was like, yeah, we should refactor the old shitty website and actually build something that's like jQuery. Yay, give us jQuery, and it evolved over time, and it took us about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, but eventually we kind of got something decent together, and I added a few. The little bar at the top of the website that's step into the future, or stuff. Yeah, I added that and these types of things, and I ended up taking, while trying to take, if you remember that bar at the top of the PHP website, I accidentally took the entire PHP.net website down, trying to add that feature, all mirrors,
nice.
Because somebody forgot to tell me, or I don't know. Something that I didn't know that you couldn't use PHP sessions on PHP.net because the way its architecture works underneath. So you have to use cookies, but I didn't know this. So there was basically I added if you press the button already, then it will keep you on the new theme, or if you say no thank you, it will remember to keep you on the old theme. And you try to use sessions to keep that state, and it just totally fucked everything. And basically, because I had analytics on the PHP.net website as well, so I just watched all the requests just go from 4,000 concurrent users down to 3,000, 2,000, 5,000, and I'm like, okay, something's went wrong, help. And then
shit.
Hannes, his name's BJORI, Biori. He just reverted my commit, and I'm like, yay, we're live. The build is green, let's go. So that was yeah, some shit that happens from time to time.
Interesting.
When you get commit access to like PHP.NET, you just sometimes you bring the whole site down. But, that's life, right?
It'd be great if people working on the PHP website knew how to write PHP or make websites.
Is so PHP.NET, is it running PPI or what's it running underneath?
Bare bones PHP, like
Nice.
no, it's not nice. It's terrible.
Is it procedural? Because that would be perfect.
Yes, it's procedure. It's
yeah.
I can probably guarantee you that like the way that it's structured and the way it works, it's probably not evolved since like PHP 4.1 or something. Like it's terrible.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. The
It's
previous
got like
version.
here docs and shit everywhere, like here docs everywhere, and like string concatenations and globals, and it's just I don't have a word for it, honestly. It's like unique. It's uniquely terrible, but it works, and it's like unique to like that's just PHP.NET, and nothing else is as bad as that in my opinion. But it works really well. So it's kind of people ranting off frameworks, and then it just shows you that you don't need fancy frameworks or objects to write system set scale that are like PHP.NET, right? So
I'm actually quite interested about the PHP.NET website, and I'm thinking of loads of questions to ask you, like how do you handle deployments, and like are there presentation layers, or is it all just fucking sprinkled in together? Like, tell us more about it.
deployments, there's mirrors. We have 2 mirrors per country. Sometimes we have 3, depending on like UK or US, right? Big countries. Each there's like a master server, and he's the guy that like basically does jobs, cron jobs and stuff. It's a glorified cron system with mirrors. That's it, really. I'm sure, of course, there's more to that, but fundamentally that's how it works. And if you're running a script to generate data or scrape data or pull data in, it just runs on the master server, and then all the mirrors just have a rsync. So that's not rs, but rsync. Just rsyncs the data to the mirrors, and they have a local XML file, or actually they don't use JSON. They use var export for all the data storage on the mirrors. So yeah, it's classy. You var export the data, and then it just gets re-imported on the mirrors, and you've got like conference lists and sorts of nonsense.
That sounds fairly terrible.
It gets worse. It's like the rabbit hole gets deeper and deeper every time you open it up.
I think I opened up the code one time. I was trying to run it locally, and I had a go, and I went, there's not enough time in the world. So more power to you for doing that. And yeah, the other question was like, how to handle presentation logic? Is the PHP just kind of all munged in together with the stuff, or do you have like Smarty templates? Or?
There's absolutely no templating. I added a few templating, but it's like 1%, I guess. It's writing HTML inside PHP rather than writing PHP inside HTML, right?
So is it like
here docs and string concatenations?
Header, footer?
What?
Sorry, is it like header and then stuff and then footer?
Yeah, it's like header procedural function, and then you like do some shit, and then it's like footer, and there's globals everywhere, and they're jumping in, and there's global variables. They're all uppercase variables. They're not constants. They're variables. They're uppercase, and they don't have any keys. A lot of them just have like 0, 1, 2, 3, and that means something magic. It's like, yeah, it's actually terrible.
It's cool, man.
It's unique. There's not a word for it, right? On a scale of like the best system and the worst system, there's a level like below that. That's like PHP.NET. That's like its own level.
That's cool, man. It makes me nostalgic. It reminds me of when I was writing code when I was 11. So that's cool.
Well, it was probably written when you were 11, so there you go.
That makes a lot of sense.
So that was like 3 years ago.
Hey, I'm still young. 15 years ago. Yeah, that's pretty funny, man. So if somebody was interested in contributing to PHP.NET to try and maybe unfuck that situation a little bit, if we haven't put them off completely, how would you suggest they get in touch? And are there many people working on it?
So the quick answer on how many people, there's like 4, 3. some people come and go. Actually, Rasmus commits a lot of code to that. Probably I'd say more. Well, I wouldn't say more so than the PHP.core, but personally I see a lot more commits coming through in my inbox. That Rasmus is constantly fixing like XSS stuff, like HTML entities this and HTML entities that, and make sure there's UTF-8 and stuff. But yeah, it's me. Well, not me first, but like Rasmus. There's Biore, the guy I mentioned, Hannes Magnuson. He's doing a lot of like long-term stuff, and a guy called Peter. Bullows.
I'm usually pretty sorry with the names as well. Just go with Twitter handle. I'm sure that's easier.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to remember. It's because I'm on the spot. He's also from Scotland. Peter something. I'll come back to it. But yeah, him and myself and the guy called Levi Morrison. You know him because I think you were involved like in RFC.
Yeah. We've had him on the show once or twice.
So it was pretty much myself and Levi doing the styling of the new site, and people helped here and there. But there's HTML, then there's JavaScript, and then there's styling. And myself and Levi done a lot of the refactoring of the styling, the way it looks. We actually didn't change anything underneath the way this PHP.NET site works. It's purely styling. It was a CSS and a HTML front page sprint that took 2 years. So anyway, the question is how many people are there? Just like 5, 6 most. How to get involved? You can go to GitHub and GitHub/PHP, and that is PHP-web, I guess. If you're looking at the source tree, it's like PHP source, PHP, all these stuff. There's one for web, and there's a read media, and it's all over the wiki as well. What I'll do is, it's not easy. It's not the easiest thing to find. So if you can put show notes up, remind me. There's a script. It's like a bash script. You download, you run it, and that basically does it. It puts a PHP.NET mirror on your machine. So it just fully downloads everything, and yeah, it's good to go. Hannes made that, so yeah. So that's how you get involved. So I'll put a link up, and you run the script, and yeah, you've got a PHP.NET website on your machine.
That's awesome, man. So Vance, you brought up a question in group chat, which I thought was pretty fun and very related to that. So do you want to take it away?
Right. Yeah. This could go for everyone here. I was just wondering. I think we all have stories of horrible websites and horrible code bases we've worked on. I just want to know, from everyone, and I guess I'll go last. What's the worst code base you guys have ever worked on, and why was it so terrible?
We're having a game of polite chicken and waiting for everyone else.
Can I go first?
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Go on, Ben.
So this one was only like last year. They hired me for some freelancing to do some security consulting. And it's an e-commerce system that actually has users, which is probably the scariest part. And it was pretty much homegrown PHP that actually used, some classes and stuff, but of course it was horribly designed. Most of the code was in views somehow, and by most of the code I mean like 90% of the code that mattered, including the SQL queries. The SQL queries were not escaped at all. And so you had the e-commerce system with code in the views doing unescaped SQL queries. It was really fucking scary, basically, is the best way to describe it.
Was that the basis of your book, the security application book?
Actually, it was after the book. They contacted me because of the book, and I was like, what have I done? I have made a terrible mistake.
Now people are going to ask me questions about security. Balls! So that sounds pretty cool.
My dog's barking in the background. Yeah, so that's mine. Next.
I think Paul might have already answered this question. Paul, is the PHP.NET website the worst code base you worked on, or do you have any other clangers?
There was a PHP 3, Yeah, the PHP 3/PHP 4 system that I had to maintain for the government about 8 years ago now. It was I won't say what government department it was. Probably shouldn't, right? They're probably spying on me right now. So.
I don't even know what government it was with your accent.
It was, I think it was the English government, or it could have been the Welsh government. I can't remember. There was the hybrid. There was like the company I worked with done.
You know your
for all
country's
different
fucked
things.
up when you don't know which government you worked for.
My client was done work for like the Welsh, English, Irish, and Scottish government, multiple projects at the same time. So you would just be like working on this one, then that one, this one. But anyway, there was this system, and it was like I thought I knew all the messed up things about PHP 4, and then I heard about this. Then I was like, there was these variables lying around, and I'm like, nobody's declared these variables. Where did they come from? And then I learned there was a new feature called register globals. Have you heard of this? Have you heard of this feature?
Sorry, I was taking down notes. Yes, I've heard of register globals. That was awful.
At that point in time, I hadn't, right? Pure luck, I guess. So yeah, that was pretty bad, and I could manipulate the entire script with get params because it wasn't just explicitly _ get. It was variables in the code, and you can manipulate variables in the code. It was pretty bollocks. So
Yeah.
that tops it.
1 second, yeah, so for those that were lucky enough to jump into PHP after the clusterfuck that was register globals was removed, or at least suggested against, register globals was an option that you could enable, which would take pretty much any get, post, cookie, whatever the hell it was, and jam it into being a variable, just like a standard variable, so you wouldn't have to, I guess, go to the extra effort of writing _get, or maybe those things would exist. It was a long time ago, I forget, but the problem was, because PHP always used to support you could use undeclared variables, so you just like reference a variable and it defaults to null. You could completely mess with pretty much any PHP script that used undeclared variables. So you could just type in a get parameter, like Paul was saying, and then it would theoretically affect the script, which is terrible. Luckily, that's gone now. When was register globals removed, Paul?
5, I guess, maybe.
Okay.
We went through that transition phase where we're like, we should try and phase these things out, right? Like magic quotes and all that nonsense. So I think it was in that like umbrella of let's slowly get rid of this nonsense. I couldn't tell you because I hadn't personally used it, so it didn't really affect me after that project.
It's about a decade at least, though, right? So it's quite a while. Stuff like that makes me feel old. I have all this useless knowledge. It's like the fact that we all know how font tags work and we will never use that shit again, right? There's all this information in here that's just completely fucking useless. And there's just not enough room for like new stuff.
Yeah.
Get rid of some of that if you drink a little more, maybe.
Well, if I switch to something a little bit better than PBR, but I am in Williamsburg, if I drink anything else, they'll hunt me down.
A few more drinks and there'll be marquees floating around your screen.
Well, that's actually a very apt comment to make. You heard that the marquee tag was made because they were drunk. They got together, it was people that worked at Netscape or whatever it was at the time.
Yeah.
And they were just like, what's the most disgusting HTML tag we could make? Something that like scrolls around, that would be gross, wouldn't it? Or this might be in the Blink tag, I can't remember which one. But they were like, fuck it, let's give it a go.
I'm pretty sure it was Blink, and they said they did it in like a night. Like they just stayed up drinking all night. And did it. Yeah.
They were out having a beer, and then like someone went, we should make a blinking tag, and they went, fuck it, let's do that, let's put it live, and they just ran off to the office and got working on it.
I haven't heard this story, so it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I don't think they work anymore. I tried putting those tags in just as we were adding an HTML element to our CMS, and I just tried to mess around. I tried putting like a blink and a marquee together, and they did nothing in the latest Chrome. So
That's sad. Probably,
yeah, I know. I was kind of sad.
You can still do it with JavaScript if you really need to, but yeah. Well, it's funny, there's been a bunch of changes like that. Like a lot of people don't know that the I HTML tag used to be italic, right? Because you now have EM, which is for emphasis. But it used to just be I, and now I is something else, I think, and that's for like informational or some other shit. So
interesting. I never used EM.
It's semantic markup.
I used I tag like last week. I use it constantly. I use the center tag and the I tag all the time, like constantly.
You're a bad person.
I just press enter. Okay.
Oh,
So,
man.
real-time follow-up by Kale Nielsen.
It's Cali. Yeah.
Uh, they say that registered globals were removed in 5.4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they were deprecated before
They've been
that.
deprecated for a while, but removed in
Yeah.
5.4.
Yeah, well, PHP's always slow to completely remove a feature from the language. So
Yeah,
I think the
MySQL.
community as a whole has not really been using it for, I mean, a decade, I would say. It's been a long time.
Yeah, if I had to pick like one bit of advice from the PHP the Right Way website back before it was removed, and like just that was the only bit of advice, it would be don't use that shit. um, just about as good as like not binding your data parameters for input and stuff. It's just really, really dumb. Moving on, I had an awesome question that I've forgotten. Ben, I think we're seeing this thing happen again where
Wait, hold on. It's your turn, I think, Phil, for the
Oh,
worst code base.
that was what I was going to say. Yeah, we had this problem on the episode 40 where I was sober and the podcast was awful, so I'm going to try and work on that.
You should drink a little faster. I'm gonna need you to
I'm sorry.
prepare for the podcast next time and do a shot first.
No,
I
we don't need him to create the worst code base. Just
yeah, I'm still recovering from last night. I had enough to kill a family of rhinos, but
I'm sorry, Phil. Have you heard of the game? It's a
game?
drinking game, and it's
No.
if you shout out a random word, and you Google that, and it's a JavaScript library, then you have to take a shot.
I have heard of that game. That's a good
Yeah,
game.
like zombie or table or like ceiling or something. There's a JavaScript framework for every verb in the language, and if you get it right, take a
Let's
shot.
give it a try. Let's give it a try right now. So I'm going to need each of you to say a word, and then I'm going to Google it and take a massive chug of PBR if it's a JavaScript framework. If it's not a JavaScript framework, then I'll probably just drink this anyway. But Ben, go first.
Angular.
Oh, all right. I don't need to Google that one. Fine. Are we just going to enter? Fine.
This is just get Phil drunk on camera and let's see what happens.
Okay. So Paul, go.
this is not.
So I'm gonna have to actually try and play the game
Yeah. So
and look around. What about door?
Door.
Door.
Okay.
Door.js, right? If that exists.
Door.js. I'm on DuckDuckGo, so obviously nothing's going to come up. That's a fucking useless website. Door.js. Now, hold on. We get to see how slow my internet connection is now. Doors is an NPM package. Oh, openable door.js. Okay, yeah. So there's something on there is something for that. So okay.
Oh, jeez.
I don't think it's a framework, but it is a JavaScript library that you load via Node. So
Yeah, it's doors.js is a component. I think that's how it works. Vance, do you have one?
Sparkle.
Sparkle. Okay. It seems like you know that that's probably a thing.
That wasn't exactly random, I don't believe.
There is Sparkle.js. What is this? Sparkle.js can add a sparkle effect to a web page. Wow, that's almost as bad as snow. I'm going to drink just out of pure depression that this exists. Okay, Phil. Phil
Wow, this is good radio. Let's hear about your worst project, Phil.
I think I might have brought it up before, and it's something I've spoken about a few times. It's not a personal attack on anyone that's involved in that company, but their product was awful, and I know that Greg Sherwood works there, and he's a lovely chap that does the PHP code sniffer. So, not trying to make fun of him, but there's the CMS called My Source Matrix, which was implemented at a company I used to work at, a massive financial services company. We replaced a kind of a hand-rolled legacy code base, which was, it sounds not that dissimilar to the PHP.NET website, but it was actually really well built. It was all, it was a whole bunch of custom code that handled a lot of really complicated financial services, and the website worked really bloody well. And we replaced it with this My Source Matrix, which was an absolute steaming pile of shit. The only bit of code in there that I liked was a bit of code that was it was benchmark utility, which would, based on how long it take between the initial start time and the current time, it would print an ASCII cow of a certain size. So the larger the cow, the slower the website. And then if you didn't see a cow at all, then it meant that the page timed out, right? It was just the most fucking ridiculous thing. But that was the best part. The worst part was that all the way through every single class, if there was any sort of error, no exceptions were used, but if there was an error, then it would, in the middle of this, like, my source matrix .class.php.inc or whatever it was, in the middle of this class, if there was an error, then it would switch out of PHP mode and go into HTML mode, and then embed script tags and use a JavaScript-based redirect to send you to a new URL which would contain the error. Like, the whole fucking thing was a complete nightmare. And we spent about £1 million, so that's like $5 million if I'm getting my currency conversion ratio right. And we spent about $1 million getting that into the company, and I have no idea why we did that. I crowbarred it in and then quit that company as fast as I fucking could.
This is, I think this has turned into a PHP therapy group.
Hold me.
Basically.
Bringing back some terrible memories. I'm gonna need to have another drink.
Well, I guess I'll go next. I've worked on a lot of bad PHP. I freelanced all through high school and college, and so I've worked on a lot of bad PHP. But I would have to say the worst project I've ever worked on was actually a Node app, and it's because it was like a novice, I don't know, super beginner, like WordPress theme hacker or whatever, PHP guy, who decided to do this Node app for a really prestigious Ivy League school, probably the first one that you're thinking of. And we were at Brightbit. We bid on this project and they passed on us because they thought we were too high, and they went with the cheap guy. And a year later, they called us and they were like, "We're having trouble with this thing that this guy made. Can you check it out?" And basically, it was a system where at the visitor center or the alumni center, you check in with iPads, and then you mark where you're from, and then it drops a pin on a map on like a big TV screen in the middle of the visitor center. So it's kind of a cool thing. This guy did it with Node and WebSockets and everything, but he just had no idea what he was doing. So I take a look at the app, and first of all of the JavaScript is just in a single file. It's like blah, you know, and it's not even app.js like you would think. He like made this controller, so the file was called controller2.js, and apparently there was some controller 1 that had not made it to the final cut.
But there wasn't like views or models, it was just a single controller?
No, it was just a single file. It was called controller. It wasn't really a controller. But anyway, so the reason why this was so bad, though, was not only that, but it's because since he had done this in Node, there were also concurrency issues and issues that you wouldn't experience in a PHP app. And so, like, he connected to the MySQL database at the top of the script, and then they had a problem where they would have to restart the server every night because the database wouldn't work when they come in the next morning. And I'm like, they told me this, and I'm like, I think I might know what's going on. And I checked the logs, and the logs are just full of, MySQL server has gone away. And I'm like, yeah, I know what the problem is right now. And the problem is Node is a long-running process. So when you start the script, it just runs forever. And there's no activity after 5 p.m. when they close the visitor center. And so MySQL has this connection that's open because he only opened a single connection at the top of the file. It has this connection that's been opened that's not being used anymore. And then it hits the max timeout, the MySQL max timeout, and just closes. And the MySQL goes, oh, look, I see you have an open connection that you haven't used in a while. Let me just help you. I'm going to close that for you. And then, and the node still thinks it has a handle on the query. And every time it sends a query, just nothing happens, and the whole thing hangs. And these are things like, you have to use a connection pool with Node because it's a long-running process. You can't just create a single connection and then start firing off queries. There were other things. He had this little homegrown queue system that was not that wasn't doing right. He tried to set up situations where it would do like 2 or 3 things, and then after those 3 things were done, something else would happen, and he just didn't get the order of them right, or there was something funky in there where it kind of worked but not always, and just a whole bunch of garbage like that. And they didn't have the budget to completely redo it, so unfortunately, I had to, get in there and fix it the best that I could. But yeah, that was by far the worst app I ever worked on. Oh, since it was JavaScript, he also had some just straight up copied JavaScript like functions on the front end and in this Node app, because hey, I can run JavaScript on the server too, so I'm just going to copy this function and use it on the server side too. He was doing Google queries and sending the entire geocode JSON results back to the server for processing, also in JavaScript. I don't know why he was doing this, and he was sending it in Git parameters, which would cut off the query string after the maximum number of characters, and then it would crash the node process because it couldn't decode the JSON object.
I think for the good of the web community at large and any business in the future, I think we are going to have to put this person down. We're going to need to take them around and just do it the quickest way possible. But I do believe that that's the only solution.
Yeah, but that was the absolute worst. And it wasn't PHP. So.
There you go. But the weird thing is, they did that with Node.js, which is magically faster than everything and perfect. So I don't understand why that wasn't web scale. I don't know.
Well, yeah. There's still a lot of fun guns, right?
Yeah. Ben, we discussed the one other topic we were going to talk about today, and it's my favorite topic, which is me.
As we all know, Phil Sturgeon loves talking about Phil Sturgeon.
Yeah.
So, Phil, you wrote this interesting blog post about how you hate everyone now, and
right.
you're leaving PHP and fuck everyone that still uses it because they're dumb.
That's exactly what I said. You managed to distill that down to a very brief number of words.
I'm really good at TLDRs.
Yeah. I said.
Rage quit.
Yeah, I don't know if you folks have seen the meme of the cat that's like, fuck this, fuck that as well, and fuck this thing in particular. But that's how I think some people ended up seeing that blog post, which is unfortunate. The blog post I wrote was pretty much like happily stepping into the shadows, which is like probably a fairly silly name for a blog post. But the point wasn't so much about I know Ben was kidding, but the point wasn't about I'm leaving PHP and running away to Ruby or anything so grossly simplistic as that. It was more that I am grateful and lucky to have had the large public profile that I've had, and it's given me amazing opportunities. I've been incredibly involved with open source for like a decade, and my involvement with open source got me the visa that I have in America. It's got me work opportunities, and it's got me the fuck out of that financial services company in Bristol where they had the stupid cow thing. It's been great, and the trouble is, because my profile grew to a certain size, everyone just was way too much in my life. Like, I like tweeting about stuff and saying where I'm going, but I don't like everyone being as involved as they are. And that wasn't the main point. That was more of a side point. The trouble is, now pretty much any project I get involved with just has knives thrown at it. Like, I get involved with the PHP League, and I was one of the few people that got that going. And people are screaming about how I'm running around the internet trying to steal other people's codes and mark it under my name to inflate my own ego, and really silly shit like this. And then even the thing that made me write the blog post yesterday was just like the final straw was it was just some asshole on Reddit, and it was the same sort of shit you can expect on Reddit. But this one person pretty much said, like, it was when followphpdevs.com came out, and there were like a bunch of different problems with that. And one person was like, "Why the fuck's Phil Sturgeon on there? I thought it was awesome developers," and I was like, "Wow, that's a bit catty." But then the other problem was that it said PHP Fig founder, and I'm not the founder of the Fig. So there's a bunch of different people having a big old piss and moan about that. And I'm like, you know what? I didn't ask to be on the list. They got it wrong, and now you're all fucked off. So because a bunch of people talk about me being like, he's awesome, and a bunch of other people were like, I'm tired of fucking hearing about Phil. Why don't you all just shut the fuck up? And I'm there like, guys, what the fuck's going on here? How about fuck all of you? It's more about how, because I don't write PHP anymore and I'm not even involved in this stuff anymore, like just everyone can just drop it. Like I'm not doing PHP, I'm working on other things. I'm looking forward to just focusing on my day job, looking after my turtle, riding my bike. And I don't need everyone to be like, whoa, Phil, or like, fuck Phil. Just everyone maybe just shut the fuck up about Phil, right? I don't know if that makes any sense.
So what you're saying is less Phil Sturgeon in our lives.
Yeah, apart from on this podcast, I guess.
Yeah. Sad face.
Yeah. It was just, yeah, I'm just kind of tired of open source as well, because I've been doing it for 10 years, and it's amazing, and everyone should spend some time working on open source, but I spent a lot of time working on it, and I'm just trying to give away all my projects, mostly because I'm not using any of them anymore. And when you get to a point where you're like maintaining open source code for the fucking sake of it, and like being this like martyr position of just like, I'm such a good person because I am dedicating all my time to writing all this code, and I don't even fucking use it. Like a lot of people do that, and I don't want to be that person, because why would you bother? There's so many other things you could do with your time than maintain code that you don't use or need or care about, right?
Yeah, so I mean that's another interesting point too for people that maintain a popular package is open source can be pretty draining, and it's a pretty big time and emotional commitment. Jen Schiffer has a pretty good talk on open source as a prison, and it's really resonating.
Yeah, she gave that talk at Thunder Plains last year, by the way.
Oh, marketing.
Expert.
Yeah. No, I mean, the being side of open source thing is something that I've actually been speaking to a few people about, and I definitely don't want to be like an anti-open source advocate, and I'll probably end up open sourcing something else in the future, but chatted to a fair few people about how fucking tiring it can be, and like there are so many problems with open source that, like I said, doing it for 10 years, I've experienced a lot of different things, a lot of different types of communities, some open source projects that have, paid options, and some that have all these various different things, and you just have people demanding things, and like you don't write any documentation, obviously people are pissed off, but then you spend like a fucking week writing documentation. I spent a lot of time writing docs for Fractal, and then just yesterday I had someone pissing and moaning because the documentation didn't cover this random obscure thing that you're not meant to try and do. And everyone wants everything for free and all of this. But the way that open source is really, I believe, meant to work, or the way, sorry, I don't know, I can't say how it's meant to work, but the way that I've always tried to make it work is when I'm doing something with my day job, or I'm consulting or freelancing or whatever, when my main source of income or a secondary source of income is being derived from some code that I can share with other people, then I will release that. And that's always been really helpful. Things like the CodeIgniter REST server had like 2,000 stars and was used by the Apple and USA.gov and the fucking United Nations for some reason. And I never made a penny from REST server itself, but I did make a lot of money writing articles and screencasts about it, and using it as a basis for building APIs and freelance work and things like that. So if you can find a way to not necessarily find a way to profit off of open source code, but if while you're profiting you can release as much fucking code as you possibly can, then everyone's pretty happy with that. And my current job, I work at Ride.com now, and we have an open source budget. So if whilst working on the Rails and Go stuff, I mentioned Go, you can drink. If whilst working on that, I come across something that I can open source that and get an extra 5 or 10K. So I can definitely maintain that code, but I'm not going to try and maintain some PHP code when I don't even write PHP anymore.
Yeah, and you alluded to earlier, and it's something, of course, you and I have talked about in the past, is you have this sort of reputation that you've gathered over the years, and part of this is kind of the persona, and part of it's just good marketing. And so people kind of just come at you assuming that you're an asshole, and assuming that they need to kind of shout you down or fight you on things. And for anyone that's met you in person, they usually know that's not true. That's not necessarily who you are. You can just come off rather abrasive. So maybe some time away will help with that. Maybe it'll, give that perception a bit. Because I know you do run into a lot of just people shitting on you immediately.
Yeah, well, a lot of the problem is I happily accept abrasive. Like, I often don't put enough like squirrels and hugs into my conversation because I'm trying to get to the point. But um, yeah, one of the problems is that I used to be, well, he's a bit of an ass, but he does some great work. And now I'm not necessarily doing the great work. Like, no one knows what I'm working on. I'm just working on stuff at Right. I'm adding new features to the API that they're never going to know about, and I'm not releasing a new thing for CodeIgniter, right? So it used to be, well, he can be a bit of a prick, but he does some good stuff. And now that they don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just a bit of a prick, which isn't very helpful. And the other problem, yeah, like it got to the point where people, because of these preconceived notions of me, jumped in and they assume that I'm trying to start drama, that I'm trying to have an argument, that I always think that I'm right, all these weird things. And I've noticed these things happen. Definitely don't always think I'm right. I do love to write blog posts about, wow, I was really fucking wrong. Here's the things I learned. Like, being wrong is great. You learn stuff. But the thing with, like, arguing, it was always, I've had this varied career, and I've worked for startups and massive corporations and 2-people companies and 10-people companies, and I didn't used to understand what sexism in the workplace really was like in subtle ways, and now I've seen it happen a lot, so I have these opinions. So because of this varied career of talking to loads of different people, which I'm sure other people have too, I have accrued a whole bunch of like contrasting viewpoints on a lot of topics. So I often try to provide those other viewpoints to other people. So when someone says, I believe X, and I'm like, well, actually, if you work for this sort of company or you live in this area, then you might end up thinking Y. And everyone's like, fuck you, how dare you say I'm wrong? I'm like, no, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to offer you other input that you don't necessarily have yourself. And then someone else from PHP replies, and then my followers and their followers are all screaming at each other, and I've caused another fucking drama. So every time I try and open my mouth, it's drama. I feel like it just ended up being too much noise and nothing useful was happening. What's that, Paul? Paul was saying something about how I should fake my own death.
No,
So, get a fresh start.
Phil, it's good. It's healthy to rant, not to vent, but haters gonna hate. You know, I just keep my head down. You know, that's how I deal with it. You know, people like you or they hate you, and you just gotta keep your head down, man. Do what you like, do it that makes you happy, and haters gonna hate, right?
That's pretty much what I'm doing. I mean, haters are going to hate. I just got fed up with them hating. I know they are going to do it, and I know that it's going to happen. And it's not even, oh, I'm sad that not everyone likes me. It's more, I'm sick and tired of the inventive ways in which they are suggesting that I'm being unreasonable. Things like I spent like a week writing a conversion script to convert phptherightway.com into a PDF book. And I released that on MyLeanPub because Josh said, whatever, go for it. And it's got his fucking name on the cover, and it's got, you know, everyone's thanked inside the book, and everyone's like, look at Phil breaking the Creative Commons license to sell this book under his own name like a prick. I'm like, firstly, I'm not selling the book. It's free, and donations go to the EFF. Like, all these crazy things that people just come up with, and I'm like, just fuck it. I don't need this shit anymore, because I used to make money from being a public figure. I used to you know, get to conferences, and I used to do consulting and contracting work based on my experience and my portfolio. So like all these, it used to be helpful. Like having the public profile was a pain that I put up with because I was being paid to do so and making money from it, and it was helping. And now that I'm not, fuck it. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I can just focus on hanging out with my turtle and riding my bike and going to the bar. I don't need any of that shit, you know.
Well, that's good. And I mean, I think a lot of us have been through varying levels of this. There's probably a good chance you'll do that for a couple of years, and then you'll circle back around, right? I mean, it seems to be kind of the cycle. Open source is something we love, but it's easy to get burnt out on it.
Yeah, probably. It might be a 6 month.
Open source projects in general definitely work best when they're a byproduct of whatever you're making. Like if you look at even the Rails project, I mean, the reason why, you know, DHH is even still involved is because he owns his business and he's running his entire business off Rails. That's why he's continuing to contribute to it, improve it, etc., because he's using it every single day. So yeah, if you're at one job that uses one language or system, and then you go to another, like one job that might use, Laravel or something, might create a lot of Laravel packages or something, and then you move to another job that uses, even within the same language, that uses, Symfony or Zend or something. You're going to have this problem too. It's not just changing languages from PHP to Ruby or PHP to JavaScript or whatever it is. It definitely has to be a byproduct of what you're building long term. So, yeah, I've definitely
Just,
experienced that myself.
just wrap it up. That's pretty much why I stuck with PPI framework for so long, because customers or companies who are wanting me to maintain it, and then I built a business around it for like 4 or 5 years. So yeah, that's kind of why I stuck with that. So it's just, yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point, Vance. It's yeah, byproduct, right? If you say either by chance happens to be your job, then you're inspired, or if you're that inspired, like I was, then you make it your job and you build a company around that technology.
Yeah, I created a API testing framework called Frisbee.js, and I first created it like 3 or 4 years ago when I was helping. I worked with a church down here that made the Bible app, Bible.com, uversion.com, and it's insanely popular. I worked with them for it's Life Church for like several years on contract through Brightbit, and I built Frisbee to help them like test all the REST API endpoints because they were moving from an old like Kohana 2 app to Python, and they needed something to test their actual API endpoints so they wouldn't break them for all their mobile clients. Because they get like 5,000 requests a second on Sunday morning and Wednesday when everyone like opens their Bible apps. But it was I created it for that, and then I didn't have an everyday use for it for a while, and it's kind of been languishing a little bit until I got to use it last week, and I'm finally starting to get back into it and update it some. So yeah, it's I don't know how you set yourself up so that you're always like using your open source projects. That's not always possible. I don't know if there's any good ultimate solution for that.
Yeah, well, that was a founding purpose of the league. Not just to inflate my ego, but yeah, it was pretty much like when you release code under your own personal name, then it's you, and it like definitively is part of your life. It's under your GitHub repo, and it can be quite annoying to give that away, or quite hard for someone else to take over. And if you move it, then it like breaks packages and breaks people's PHP code, and it's a real serious problem. So that's why a lot of people often end up using framework stuff or like components from Symfony and Zend because they know that that's going to be good. Maybe it's slower or not quite as good as this random person over there made, but they know it's with Symfony and it's not going to vanish next week. So that was again a point of the league was we quite often change things around. So I can pass Fractal is currently listed on packages it's league/Fractal, and then when I switch out for someone else, then guess what? It's the exact same thing. Someone else is just pushing their commits in instead of me doing it. So that's helped out a lot in the past. Where I think OAuth 2 client that was done by Alex Bilby because he was using it, and then he didn't need it anymore. So Ben Ramsey graciously took over, and no one even noticed really, apart from like maybe him tweeting about it. So I think trying to group up with a group of your friends or with your company or anything like that is a good way of doing it, just to give it slightly more longevity than you, because in 6 months' time you might be dead or working at a different company or doing something else or just not care anymore like myself, and anything can change in 6 months, and if everyone's using your code and you're the only one that has any access to it, then it's a bit of a fuck up. Sorry to say you might be dead in 6 months. That was fairly depressing. I'm talking I'm talking from personal experience. I cycled in New York and I started longboarding, so I probably will be dead in 6 months. But I'm sure you guys are much more.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm actually
the Joker. I was just saying, Phil, you might not be dead, but you might look like the Joker. Half a face.
That could happen. Yeah.
Or half a body. Like you've grinded like 20 feet.
That's depressing and graphic, Paul. I'm concerned about your imagination.
Really? I thought that was pretty mild. Okay, I'll shut up then.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, Vance. What were you saying?
I think I kind of like the idea of the league in general because I've heard counter arguments for having packages under like a company repository because there's counter concerns beyond so there's concerns on one side if this is an individual who owns this, what if something happens to that individual, and then there's arguments on the other side that are like, well, if a company owns this package, what what is the company going to do with that, and are they going to do some jerk move somewhere down the line. You just never know because there's some financial interest tied to the package when there's a company involved.
Yeah, and that's another
so I
concern
think
too.
something.
Is the company could kind of steal your work in that way. Like you
That's
put
why
a
I
lot
don't use
of
hack.
interest. What was that, Paul?
That's why I don't use hack. Is it what plans, like company makes sales, and then it's like financial interest, and just that whole thing. I'm not saying hack's a bad project. I'm just saying it's an example of a commercial entity building something, and it's not bound by like say ethics or open source ethics. It's like commercial drive, right?
Right.
Not what's really not what's best for the project, but the best for the company because they need it.
Companies usually don't necessarily have morals or guilt, whereas a person hopefully does.
Right.
I'd agree.
Right. So if you're someone,
I resent.
so that's what I was saying. I think something like the league is a good middle ground. But if you're not involved in the league or you're in some other language or something, like how did you start this, Phil? Like how did you go about doing this? I'm interested now.
What about the league?
Yeah, like so. There's obviously concerns on both sides. If there's financial interest involved, if it's a company that owns it, there's potential, just dead projects if it's just an individual. So like, what is the middle ground, and is that the league? And
I think that's kind of the
something
point.
like it.
So I think I refer to the league as a component vendor, right? It's just a vendor that makes components, which is exactly what Aura is now that they don't have. Now that they don't actually have a framework component, they're no longer marketing themselves as a framework, and they're just a bunch of useful components. I want to see loads of these component vendors. I want competition with the league. I want loads of people to do this, and I want people to do it in every language. I don't want people making the same fucking thing over and over again, because that's kind of the point of what the league's trying to do. We're trying to make unique things. We're not making a framework. We'll never be a framework. We do have a router, but we didn't make the router. Someone else made a very popular one, and then they brought it over. So that might seem hypocritical, but it's not. The idea of a component vendor is, it's not a company. So we're not. You don't want. I do regret earlier saying that like a company is a good place to put it. I'm just trying to. One end you've got a person who can be very flaky, and the other end you have a company who wants to make money and doesn't have guilt or morals. And then the middle ground is like a bunch of friends that can help each other and recruit other people. So maybe it should be an organization, like a not-for-profit, but that all seems very weird and formal and official and complicated, and you have to do like tax returns, I guess. It's literally just like grab some friends and make some stuff together. And then if one of you dies, your friends will know about it, and they probably have access to some stuff. But move away from death. Like they can talk to your mum and ask for your computer so they can get in. Whatever. No. Move away from death.
We have talked about death way too much on this podcast.
What the fuck?
Seriously, it's because I've started longboarding. I'm thinking about it a lot. I've had some very close calls with buses.
Are you about to turn 25, Phil? Is that the problem here?
Sorry?
Are you turning 25 soon? Is that, are you contemplating?
I've already had my quarter-life crisis last year. It was a very scary couple of months, but no, I'm nearly 27, so I'm already over the hill. No, moving away from death, like even just boredom. Like if you and your friends are working on something, then you can talk to your friends about things quite easily. So Alex wasn't scared of coming to me and saying, I'm no longer working on the OAuth 2 client, or he didn't feel like I'd scream at him, so he was, forced to work on it for longer than he was. He was just like, hey man, I've got this new job and things are a bit different. I'm not working on it. And I'm like, cool, that's awesome. We'll find someone else. Okay. So you can all just work together as people that have brains and mouth words and just release things and swap them when you need to and take over and contribute on each other's code, but then like not. Hopefully, if you're friends, you can avoid overstepping and like doing too much on their project and things like that. So I think, yeah, just get in a few people that you like working with that maybe you freelance with now and then, and just make a silly name or whatever for your team and just release code under that instead of every single person releasing it under their own name. Mostly because people's names are hard to spell. So if you go with something catchy and easy, then you can do that. There are some developers that, like, again, I always pick on the Russians, but like they have some really hard names, and or like Polish people, there are a lot of Y's and Z's, and it's like, maybe you can come up with a team name for yourselves for your component vendor that's easier to memorize and market and brand, and everyone wins, right?
Yeah, or everyone calls you a jerk. So either way.
Yeah. The downside there is that people think that they aren't. It's fair. The biggest pushback I've seen to the league is that people think that the people working on the packages aren't promoted enough, and that's a very valid concern. I think if we were to like hide the contributors and just say like it's all the league, we are this Borg hive state, and no one, you don't have a name anymore. You're just League Person 1. Like, that would all be terrible. But right on the fucking page. Yeah, exactly. I'm not a number. I'm a free man. Right on the homepage, right next to the package, it says their fucking name in big letters. And there are developers that no one really knew of before that made an amazing piece of code that had like 1 star, and then we get them on the league. That brings all the people together. Then like other people can talk about it, and they get more attention. And now their package has like 1,000 stars, right? So the whole, if you're part of a group, then you lose your identity, is a bit of a false argument, even though it does seem like a valid concern.
Yeah, and I'm also not necessarily a fan, but this is something we should argue out for another episode because we're hitting up on our time, I believe. And somehow it'll circle back to death if we discuss the league any further. All right. Does anyone have any final points on the things we discussed tonight?
Happy thoughts.
Happy thoughts. Thanks everyone for the group PHP therapy session. It was great.
Yeah, I didn't cry. It was close. Didn't happen.
So there's stuff on IRC and things like that, like QA. People, Callie asked a question, but I quit my IRC client, so I lost it. Nah, I got it back. But Callie was asking PHP 7 questions, stuff like that.
It's not super relevant, so we might want to save that because that could be a big topic.
Yeah, we'll use that as a starter for the next episode. I literally have 3 minutes left on my battery as well, so this would be a great time.
Yeah. All right, thanks for joining us, Paul and Vance. It's been great having you. We appreciate it, and sorry it took us so long to get this scheduled. We've been working on this for like a month now. So.
It's all good. All right.
Yep, no worries.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. See you next time.
See ya.
Wait for it.